We're given a formula for the general nth term of a sequence, and we're being asked to write the first 4 terms. Now we can see this notation down here in the denominator that has this exclamation point. So let's go ahead and just look at that separately before we get into working on this specific sequence. That notation is called factorial notation, and so we would read something like this as n factorial. And by definition, this is telling us to start with that number n and multiply it by 1 less than that, so n minus 1. Multiply again by 1 less than that, so n minus 2, and so on, all the way until we get down to 1. So finally we'd have something like times 3 times 2 times 1 on the end. So as an example, say I have 6 factorial. That would mean 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And in this case that would come out to 720. So in most scientific and certainly in graphing calculators, you will find this button in one of the menus somewhere, so you can do a search for that based on the model of your calculator to find where that is. Okay, so back to our sequence here, the first 4 terms. So the first term would be a1. So that means we want to plug a 1 in for n. So that's 20 over 1 plus 1 factorial. So of course 1 plus 1 is 2, so that's 2 factorial. And 2 factorial by definition means just 2 times 1. And 2 times 1 is 2, and 20 over 2 is 10. So then a2, the second term, plug a 2 in for n, so we get 20 over 2 plus 1 factorial. So that is 3 factorial. And 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1, which is 6. And 20 over 6 can be reduced to 10 over 3. And then a3 is going to be our third term. Let's plug a 3 in for n and get 20 over 3 plus 1 factorial. 3 plus 1 is 4. There's a 4 factorial, which means 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So we can even do some simplifying before we multiply that out, or you can just go ahead and multiply it. 4 times 3 would be 12, times 2 would be 24. And that can be reduced to 5 over 6. And finally our fourth term, a4. Let's plug a 4 in for n and get 20 over 4 plus 1 factorial, which is 5 factorial, which means 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So again, we can either just multiply at the bottom and then reduce it, or we can do our reducing first. In this case, that would be significantly quicker. So because down here on the bottom I have 5 times 4, which is 20. And so 5 times 4, that's 20. So that would cross out with the 20 that's on top and leave a 1 on top over 3 times 2 times 1, which is 6. So that does our simplifying right there. So our first 4 terms are 10, 10 over 3, 5/6, and 1/6.